So I feel kind of bad. I'm not going to lie. When I was thinking about doing this next episode and I was on my way of collecting ideas and inspiration, I apparently didn't save this one. And I feel super bad about it because I think it's a great idea and I can't give proper credit to the person that did it. So I'm a frequent Reddit user. I view the front page of the internet quite a bit, daily even. And I'm an all kind of guy. I usually go through my own subreddits and, really dive into certain subreddits and stuff that I'm interested in. But I'm usually on all for the most part, just so I can get a general sense of the world and what's going on. What's funny, I have to know what the daily memes are. Because if I don't, then I just can't go. I can't finish my day. I have to know what those memes are. One of the Ask Reddit subreddits came through, and it was something to the effect of you have the ability to say a single phrase or a single sentence that everyone on Earth can hear. Like somebody was it was like somebody was speaking to them inside their head, like it was their own internal voice speaking to them. And you could whatever it was that you said could be projected onto every single person in the entire world. And the number one comment was like something to the effect of, "My child, what you believe is true." There was something else, but it was basically like, they were God, and what the person who was hearing this voice, which would be everybody, whatever their perception of God was the correct perception, because he wanted to watch the world burn. It was very Joker-esque of them. Can we make that joke? Can we make the Joker joke? The Joker joke. God, don't call it that. That's a terrible name for it. Where are they? And I was like, that's hilarious, one. And also very intriguing. If you were given that superpower, if you could tell the entire world a single sentence, like just a single phrase, what would it be? What would you say? And then I got to thinking, this might make for a pretty cool story. This is #Flash Fiction. It's a show about writing in real time. I'm your host, Eric M. Hunter, and I've been writing stories since I was a child. There's a million ways to start a story, and you never know how it's going to turn out. It could be good, or it could be really bad. Let's see what happens. So my initial thought was, how do I make this boring yet interesting, very aesthetic, but boring? And my mind went to sort of like an interview process. So our protagonist has been selected somehow, and they are being drilled with these super weird questions just to kind of give an idea of what, I mean, you are literally giving the power to somebody to implant this memory, or to implant this thought into everybody in the entire world, in every language, whether if they're deaf or Arabic or Japanese or whatever, like that, whatever you say, everybody will clearly understand what is being said in that moment. And when I mean aesthetic, like my head sees like The Matrix, the part where everything is that weird retro futurism, and to dial into the Matrix, we have to find landline telephones, we have to use super old tech to do something that is, outrageous. That's the whole idea is outrageous. I like that idea. I like the idea. And even that interview scene in The Matrix when he's talking to Mr. Smith for the first time, and they're in like this padded room, and there's this very clinically clean table in front of them, and Mr. Anderson is sitting there. He has no idea what's going on. Like, he has a vague assumption, but he has no idea what's going on. And Mr. Smith knows everything. He is using Neo as like a plaything, and a dollhouse, and he's manipulating him with his words, and he's trying to, it's kind of like a Jedi mind trick sort of situation. Like it's kind of like, you know, when in Star Wars, when you are trying to get information out of somebody and it's painful, but, and I don't want to do a painful thing. That seems too much. I mean, we're just writing fiction here, people. Let's not get weird. Let's not get crazy. Not too crazy. That's a little crazy.
Wipe them out. All of them.
And I like that. It's very Wes Anderson-esque. Wes Anderson-esque. You know, like the colors are very important to what's on the screen, and the way that people are dressed and the way that they're gesturing is very important. It all points to clues as to what's going on behind the scenes, behind the curtain. And this character, this protagonist, is sitting here and he's doing his best to answer these questions, even though the questions are ridiculous and nonsensical. He's, you know, racking his brain because he has again, like Neo, he has sort of an idea of what's going on, but he doesn't know exactly what's going on. So we have our setting. I feel the setting of the story is going to take place in a very, you know, clinical, clean room with a single table, 2 chairs, maybe a manila envelope. Is that how you say that word? Manila envelope with a bunch of information, a bunch of pages. And of course our protagonist can't see what is on those pages. And maybe he does get a glimpse of it and it's just gibberish. It's not in English or any language that he recognizes. Oh, shoot. They could be aliens. This could be like an alien test that they're doing. And, oh, that's a good angle. I like that angle. They're granting this gift upon one person every 200 years or something like that. And if that's the case, then it's going to take a lot more research. But what I was just thinking is I could go back and find like those paradigm shifts within the world that we've dealt with over the past, I don't know, 2,000 years, where it was like at this point in time and this point in history, everybody just turned right. And then we were now on that right-hand turn and we're just driving down like the whole world. So that could be like, oh, well, that was what this person decided. They wanted to push the industrial revolution. So they said, you know, machines good, manual labor good. I don't know. Maybe that could be something I could kind of like pepper in with, you know, and be vague about and not really explain, because I'm trying to keep this under 1,000 words and I'm not really in the mood to do research right now. So, okay. So we have our setting. The next thing we need to do is we need a character name, and by golly, we're going to pull up that name generator. I don't know if I've discussed this before. These episodes are so like sporadic when I'm writing them. The generator that I use the majority of the time is generatorland.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes. It's one of those like end all be all when it comes to generators. It's not just for names, but there's like plot generators. I saw one for like drunken name generators. There's horror movie title generators, like just everything you can think of. I feel like is on the site. So generatorland.com, not, you know, hashtag not an ad. Just, I had mentioned this before. I hate coming up with names, and this website is great. Generatorland.com. I'm getting a lot of female names, which is making me wonder if I should make it the main lead a female, which I don't know. Me being a white American male, I always just immediately go for white men in my writing. And again, that's something that I'm working on. I have to write a story and I have to get it down on paper. A lot of that stuff, I feel like, and again, this is just me saying, and this could be completely wrong, but I feel like a lot of those little instances, like let's say the main character was a woman from Ethiopia. Okay. So I'm not a woman. I know nothing of Ethiopia except for that I know it's a country somewhere. I'm sure I've run into people who were from Ethiopia, but that kind of stuff I feel comes out in the revising stage where you try to find things that the protagonist would be able to remark on coming from that sort of background. And that's where like that part of the research comes in. So normally what I will do is like, I will just write it as easy as I can, you know, like Joe's the main character, John's his best friend, Dave is his dad, Linda is his mom, you know, like whatever I can do just to get that stuff out of the way. If I'm not telling a character story where it's super important what their background is and their heritage is, which now that I think about it, I've never really written anything like that before. Like I usually just write it. And then if I feel it's more interesting or it's more fun to have a character that is unique, then I will adjust that in a revision when I go back to re-edit and rewrite. And then I will dive into all of that information and do that research to make sure that I'm, you know, doing it correctly. Like I'll try to contact people who may be from that region or know, you know, or have family from that region, to kind of get like specific. One of the things that I learned from a gentleman that I speak to regularly, he's from India. And for whatever reason, I asked him if there was like any interesting, different things that from his childhood growing up that I, as an American, would not know or wouldn't have dealt with. And one of the things that he told me is that apparently, again, this is just coming from him, he claims that in India, parents are very against kids working out, like lifting weights, because they think it stunts their growth. So when he would go to like gym class, like he made sure to stay away from the weights, the free weights and stuff, because he was afraid that he was going to stunt his growth, which to me is hilarious. Like I've never heard that before. And again, I don't know if that's just like a regular thing, but that was his childhood growing up in India, was he stayed away from weights because he was afraid he was going to stunt his growth. It's such a weird idiom. It's probably not an idiom, but that was just the word that came to mind.
Okay, pirates, hey, take a knee. Noah, you want to...
That won't translate. It's like last week when you said, lend me your ears, and they were like, appa!
Damn it.
I can't do idioms, sorry.
Shut up.
Okay, so Christy Hopwood, I like that. That's good. Christy with a K, Risty. It's kind of interesting. It's not your traditional Christy. So hello, Christy Hopwood. You are now our protagonist. Okay, so we have our protagonist. We have our setting. I hit the microphone. We kind of have an idea of how we're going to go about this. So let's just hop right into the interview. How do you even spell Manila? Manila? Manila envelope? Manila? That's not how you spell it. That's not right either. Oh, it is. Weird. Okay, so I said I didn't want to do any real research for this because again, it's flash fiction. I've got 1,000 words. I just need to finish it. But here I am going to Google and searching parts of a telephone because I don't remember like what the actual components of the telephone are called. Like I know there's like a keypad and okay, so it's calling in a microphone and a speaker. I was thinking like receiver. Where was I thinking receiver from? Maybe if I can find an older, there we go. Let me look for an older looking phone. Oh, that's not what I want. Dang it. All right. I'm down deep in the, in the evolution of the phone tech. I got to get out of this.
Okay.
Alrighty, there it is. First draft is done. I'm actually a little surprised. Maybe not surprised, but just a little, we'll go with surprised. I feel like the story came very easily to me. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like there was only a couple of times where I felt like I was kind of stuck in a hiccup. And it was more about things that I hadn't thought about. Like, okay, like we have the setting, but what do we have to say about the setting to make the reader know that this is a very weird created space? So I was thinking of, of using words like clinical and clean, and those are terrible words, but to try to showcase that there is something very specific about this room and it's very odd. But other than that, like, the story just kind of came. I didn't run into anything where I felt like, okay, I wasn't expecting this, I have to stop, figure out where I'm going to go, because I haven't really sat down and outlined the story except for in my head, which is normally what I do. I'm a huge outliner. Like, that's how I get things done, is by outlining them. And that's just not in writing. That's just everyday life. Keeping a schedule is very important to me. I knew the image in my head that I saw when I first read that and that response. And I was like, and I could feel myself there, and I could hear nothing and smell nothing. And everything I touch is cold and, metallic and very alien. So when I go back, I'm going to try to make sure I do those things, because that stuff's super important to me. But yeah, like, it's just like, I feel like it just kind of came. Like, there was even a couple of times where I felt like I was about to write a sentence, and then I thought to myself, no, I could write that sentence better. Like, I was already kind of editing myself, which it's something that Brandon Sanderson has said during one of his talks, that knowing the rules and the grammar and things like that when it comes, and punctuation and spelling when it comes to writing, is going to save you time in the long run. Because if you know those things and you know those rules, and as you're writing your zero draft or your first draft, you can correct yourself as you go. Then when you go back to do that first or second initial edit, you don't have to worry about those things, because you already knew, like, you shouldn't do those in the first place. And that's something I've been trying to focus on more and more lately, especially since I started doing this podcast. Just, trying to make sure that I brush up on the important things of, when to use semicolons and when not, and, when to take a long sentence and just turn it into two instead of like one with oh no, Schoolhouse Rocks. What is it? A conjoiner? That's not right. Like an and or a but or a shoot. What's that called?
Conjunction, junction. How's that function?
But yeah, so knowing those things helps you in the long run, because it saves you time on the back end. And it, in my opinion, it makes you more satisfied with the work, because when you read a zero draft or a first draft and you see those sentences and they kind of stick out, and you use, you use a dime word instead of a nickel word, it's like, man, that's right, this is good. Like, there's something here. It kind of, like, for me anyway, it kind of keeps me going. All right. So anyway, back to the important stuff. Let's see what our word count is at. 1191. 1,191. You know what? That's a lot less than I thought it was going to be. Because the way, Google Docs, like, I'm up to 6 pages, and usually 6 pages is almost 2,000 words, 1,800 words. So I don't know. Maybe I just did a lot more breaks than I normally. And there's a lot of dialogue in this too. That might be something. All right. So I have to cut 100. What did I say? 191. 191. Yeah, 191. So 200 words. That shouldn't be too bad. Let's find out. I just remembered it's conjunction. Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Hooking up phrases and sentences and something, clauses. That's what it was, a conjunction.
Conjunction,
So I got it down to 1,001 word. And what do I cut? What word do I cut? I only got one word to cut. Which one do I do? I don't know. Which one do I cut? Ha! I broke the algorithm. I didn't take out a word. I contracted a word. Well, 2 words. I had what is, and I contracted it to what's, and that gave me 1,000 words. Still need to run it through the pro writing aid, grammar checker, improver. Actually, let's just do that now, because that could totally change the word count. All right, so the improve is done. Let me see what the word count is. Oh, we're way under now. 985. So maybe I should have did that first. Maybe I should have just went through the pro writing aid, improved document function, and it'll have me fix all that stuff. And a lot of the time, the things that I fall for are passive verbs. And passive verbs make your writing sound kind of wonky and boring. It sounds kind of blasé, I guess. And I do it a lot. And in my head, when I'm writing it, I think like, oh yeah, this sounds good to me because it sounds like I'm trying to be smarter than I really am. One of the sentences that it fixed was, Christy began to panic. Began to panic is a passive verb, and it changed it to Christy panicked. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes more sense. She began to panic. She panicked. But that in my head, it sounds smarter to say began to panic. I don't know why, but it does. Luckily with Pro Writing Aid, it catches all that stuff. Again, hashtag not ad. Anyway, so this is it. I think this is good. I think this story, like I was saying before, like it came to me very quickly. I could visually see it. It's simplistic in its nature, but yet it's fun and interesting. There's a certain thread that if you're paying attention, you kind of have an idea of what might be happening when you go back to read it again. You can start to see little things here and there, like by the way, the interviewer shifts and smiles oddly and has no reaction to jokes and anything that Christy's like kind of thrown at her to lighten the mood. Comes off very robotic, comes off very alien. Well, I'll get into the story, but I think this is, as I can say that this story is one of those stories that you wish all of the stories that you write happens, where it just like kind of comes to you and it's here in front of you on a silver platter. You can do whatever you want with it. It's beautiful. It doesn't matter, and you're just going to skip, hop, and jump through the flowers and then get to the end. And that never happens. Especially with me, when I write, it's a job. I'm writing because it's a job. It's something I enjoy doing, of course. That's why I'm doing it. But I have rules and I have ways and structures and methods of doing things that in my mind, I have to do every time or I will not finish this. I will lose interest or I'll find too many holes or too many problems and I'll just get frustrated and I'll put it down. So I take all of that prep time in the beginning so I don't get 50,000 words into a novel and then just say, F this, I'm done because I'm tired and I'm bored with it and none of this makes any sense. So I have to spend that extra time to put all that foundation together to make sure that I push myself to finish the story. This I did not do. I literally saw something on Reddit and it gave me a visual and then I shat out 1,200 words. And that never happens. And I'm pleased that it's happened with this because I really like the story. And I hope you do too. And oh, shoot, I guess we have to name it. I didn't even think about that. We have to name the story. What are we going to name it? Oh, I hate naming stories. Okay, so you can name it off one of the characters, like the interviewer. That's dumb. The telephone. That's dumb. I hate naming stuff. Okay, so there's a line that's in the story where the interviewer says, not to worry. It's all theatrics. It's all theatrics. I like that. I don't really know what it means for the story or how that relates to other than just it being a line in the story. But I like those 3 words together. So that's what we're going to call it. We're going to call it It's All Theatrics. Okay, so here we go. This is called It's All Theatrics. Christy shifted uneasily in her chair when the interviewer unfolded a manila folder. Inside were stacks of paper, all covered in lettering that Christy couldn't make out from the side of the desk. Not risking being nosy, she looked around the room. Every corner was angled at 90 degrees, she assumed, a bland beige color covering the walls. 2 steel chairs, one of which she was currently sitting, accompanied the steel desk in front of her. The interviewer shuffled through a few more pages. Christy tried to think of something else that wouldn't force an unwanted laugh. This meeting was important, she told herself. She wasn't sure why, but the whole process seemed very important indeed. Christy, is it? The interviewer asked, not looking up from her sheets. Yep, Christy, named after my grandmother, who I've never met, but I'm told is a hell of a horseshoe player. Christy laughed, but the interviewer showed no reaction. The steel chair was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. The interviewer shuffled through a few more pages before settling them down. Okay, so it says here a Mr. Bloom nominated you? Christy nodded. Yes, strange. He was an old acquaintance from college a lifetime ago. He rang me up, then I received a letter in the mail asking me to be here. So here I am. Christy raised her hands, but the interviewer stared, smiled briefly, then turned back to her paperwork. Have you ever thought of killing someone? The interviewer asked. Christy's tongue became stuck in her mouth. She shook her head, hoping to unhinge it. Goodness, no. I would never wish harm on anyone or anything. What makes you ask such a question? Christy asked. The interviewer looked up, a blank expression on her face. Just a question. There'll be a couple of those. Are you all right with that? She asked. Christy thought for a moment, fidgeting with her fingers in her hands as they laid softly in her lap. Yes, questions are fine. Mr. Bloom mentioned there would be questions, Christy admitted. The interviewer dropped the pages back on the desk. And had Mr. Bloom mentioned what sort of questions we'd be asking? Her face went hard. Christy adjusted in her seat. No, ma'am. No, he did not. Just that I should answer them as truthfully as I could. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Christy sat straight, her confidence holding her back tight. The interviewer quickly went back to her paperwork, and Christy took the moment to relax a bit. Have you ever had a family pet that went by the name of Nanook? She asked. Christy searched her mind. No, none that I can think of, she said. None? No family members or friends? Christy shook her head again. And what's the meaning of life? The interviewer asked, looking up at Christy to catch her gaze. Christy's eyes went wide. The meaning of life? She repeated. The interviewer nodded. I don't know. Nobody knows. Isn't that the whole point? Christy asked. The interviewer looked up. A look of suspicion fell over her face. Elaborate, the interviewer said. Christy cleared her throat. Well, she started, the whole point is to go around and try to find out what the meaning of all this is, right? And I don't think it's the same for everyone. Life means different things to different people. But you, the interviewer interrupted, what's the meaning of life for you? Christy searched her brain for the correct answer. No, the honest answer. I don't know, she said. And I don't want to know. Sort of ruins the fun, don't you think? The interviewer's eye twitched, almost as she wanted to say something that she probably shouldn't before looking back down at her papers. Are you allergic to anything? She looked up again, her face more pleasant than before. No, ma'am. The interviewer smiled thinly and stretched almost the width of her face. Good. One less thing to worry about. Okay, I think we're done here. The interviewer shifted the papers back together into a neat stack, placed them in the folder, and closed it. That's it? Christy asked. She looked around the room, waiting for some impending doom. That's it. The interviewer knocked twice on the desk, and a line behind her opened up from ceiling to floor, then into a door. She stood up and motioned for Christy to follow. Christy nodded to the interviewer, stood up, and then followed through the door. The interviewer closed the door behind her, causing the room to go pitch dark. For a moment, Christy's heart leapt into her throat as she panicked. Not to worry, it's all theatrics, she said. There was a click, and the sudden brash of light blinded Christy from overhead. When her eyes focused, she found herself in a similar room as before, only this time there was just a desk, and on that desk was an antique telephone, one you'd expect to see on Alexander Graham Bell's desk. Christy's mind swirled in fantasy she couldn't quite comprehend. She looked down at the telephone, then back to the interviewer. What's this? She asked. That is what your benefactor chose for you. With this, you can speak to the world. A simple phrase heard by everyone in whatever way they communicate, spoken by you into that telephone. Christy moved her attention back to the telephone. The entire world, every language, every culture, every religion would hear her words, seemingly as a thought of their own. She took a step forward, then hesitated. Turning back, the interviewer was gone. She was alone in this room with only the telephone to keep her company. Desire reached out with Christy's fingers and grasped the telephone. The weight pushed back at her palm as she raised the speaker to her ear and the microphone to her mouth. She took a deep breath, then spoke. There you have it. That's it. It's All Theatrics. It's good. I like it. I'm sorry. I think it's pretty good. I think this might be the best one I've written since doing this. I mean, I really enjoyed the first one, The Mess I Made, and I thought, the nuclear football was a good idea. And I kind of wish I would have had more words. And if I want to cap myself at 1,000 words, I could do more with it. But man, I don't know. This one kind of gets these. This is one of those stories where it's just like, yeah, like I want to write now. I want to create something. I want to put something that's in my brain and blow it up on the page and then share it with people. Like it's stories like this where I'll sit back when I'm done. I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I want to be doing right now. This is what I want to spend my time doing in this very moment. It's this. And this is good. I like this. And I hope you liked it. I hope you do. And you know what? If you've got stories like this, send them to me. You can hit me up on Twitter at FlashFiction4, or you can email it to me, hello@ericmhunter.net. And I will read it on the podcast. We will hear what was in your brain that you just wanted to explode out of your mouth and into your fingertips and to put on the page. Those are the stories I want to read. Until next time.